Sheila Henson is an ADHD and neurodiversity coach and educator. She has personal experience with ADHD and dyscalculia, so a lot of her experience is informed by that. She works with individuals, couples, families, and organizations, providing support through coaching, mediation, and training. She is going to be doing a talk for us called Conflict is a Gift, which I think will be an excellent inflection point in this conference. Please welcome Sheila Henson.
So if we're switching slides, I'm just going to like point at you or something. Yeah, that's a good start. Okay. Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in a second. Huh? I'm going to be like, I'm just going to grab it. Yeah, I'll just do that now. I can't talk without moving, so I'm just going to. Okay. Oh, yeah, y'all can move around too if you need to. You can get up and walk and stand and stretch and dance and whatever. I actually would love it if people would start dancing. Okay. Okay. Oh, it's okay. Ready. Here we go. Conflict is a gift. Oh, we're on board already. This will be easy. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about how conflict can actually be beneficial for you, for your relationships, for the world. I am excited to talk about this after Joy's amazing talk that I loved, because if you're wondering, as white people, what you can do, like get used to being uncomfortable and like get really good at being uncomfortable. And get really good at conflict. So this is for everybody though. And I'm going to give you a few tips just to like increase your confidence in your conflict management skills. I don't love always saying conflict resolution because not all conflict is resolved. Some conflict is ongoing for generations and generations. And so we just need to navigate, we need to manage, we need to be able to hold it. And so I'm going to give you some tools for that and hopefully convince you that conflict is great and we all want more of it, actually. Um, next. Oh, that's me. Um, I'm Sheila Henson. I am, like Polly said, I'm on the board of directors for Rewild Portland, where I do a lot of mediation and conflict management stuff and social tech stuff and accessibility stuff. I am a certified equity informed mediator and I do mediation. I have to look, who am I? What do I do? I've worked as in behavior and special education and crisis prevention for over 20 years, dealing with extreme conflict, violent conflict, all that fun stuff. So that's my credentials, I guess, for me talking to you about this. And yeah, now I work as an ADHD and neurodiversity coach and educator. This stage is unstable, so if I fall, just laugh. Okay, next. Before we begin, I just want you to reflect for a second and think about conflict. Maybe you had an uncomfy feeling sometime during the last talk, or maybe you had like a feeling, right? That kind of gets your fight going. And what other conflicts are going on in your life? Big ones, small ones, you know, national ones, at home ones. And kind of start with where are you with that? When you think about conflict, do you immediately want to hide? When you think about conflict, do you just want to go to fisticuffs? When you think about conflict, where do you feel that in your body? And we'll start there and see if we can get it to shift a little bit through this. So no, really, conflict actually is a gift. Raise your hand if you're dubious about that concept, that maybe conflict is not great. All right. You're the ones I'm going to convince. Here we go. I like that most of you are on board, though. We'll just vibe. Next. So, one of the reasons why people struggle with conflict or don't want to engage in conflict or don't think it's a good thing might be that They don't like the feeling of being out of control. As soon as they get into conflict, they start getting angry, they start going into fight or flight, they start to feel out of control. Men might be afraid of being seen as threatening. Women, especially Black women, might be seen as a stereotype of the angry Black woman. Don't want to be seen that way. Unpredictable, challenging authority. Some people just don't like challenges to authority, right? Some people see it as disrespect. If you're going to try to have a conflict with me, if you're going to kind of tell me about your anger, I might see that as disrespectful. It might be vulnerable. Talking about your feelings, about anger, or hey, you hurt me, that can be really vulnerable and that can be really scary, right? So, should we feel guilty for expressing anger? Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I agree. I might try to get you to participate a little bit because I need to remember that you're human. Um, what was conflict like for you as a child? This is in your head. Um, were you allowed to express anger? Did you feel heard? Because a lot of where we are with how we feel about conflict now came from how conflict was modeled to us or what was acceptable for us in childhood. So that's a good thing to think about. And I would love if our awesome microphone helper would ask maybe one or two people, what messages did you receive about anger growing up? Does that very briefly? Raise your hand if you would love to share something that a message that you received about anger in childhood. Somebody back there.
If you have a problem, you are the problem.
Oh, if you have a problem, you are the problem. Yikes.
Anger is dangerous.
Dangerous.
Thanks. Yeah, anger automatically equals violence instead of justice or protection.
Anger automatically equals violence instead of justice or protection. So a lot of us learned, what's the point? I can get as angry as I want. All that's going to happen is I'm going to get punished for it. Let's do one more here. Yeah, when you are in an unsafe or unfair situation, it can feel like anger or conflict is a little useless, right? What's the point?
So I grew up in a household where my dad was constantly showing anger and was constantly harming my mom. And I saw that and I said to myself, this is something I never want to do. But then as I grew up and got to understand my dad later, I understood that the real conflict was just that my mom viewed anger as something harmful, whereas my dad actually viewed some anger as normal, where my dad could blow up and have a fight, but then he'd be calm and still see you as a person, whereas my mom saw it as this horribly harmful thing. But they'd never communicated their different views of anger.
Communication. Amazing. Um, yeah. And a lot of people who saw anger turn to violence or anger turn to unresolved conflict in childhood might think like, oh, well, that's not helpful. Anger just hurts people, right? Um, but it's not like that. Anyone ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender? There's like this kid's trying to learn all the four elements, right? And he's learning about fire and he hurts somebody and he's like, fire is bad and I'm never going to use fire again because it just hurts people. And then later he finds out that actually fire is so helpful. It's about passion, it is warmth, it's all of these different things, right? I think anger can be a similar thing where we have to see it as a tool, and it is something that can be so empowering and motivating and can actually help keep people safe. You might think, I'm a lover, not a fighter, but like, what kind of lover are you if you're not willing to fight for what you love, right? Next. So we're avoiding conflict because we might be afraid of getting yelled at or of aggression in general. Maybe our nervous systems are just really sensitive. Some people, even without trauma or anything, just as soon as someone raises their voice, they, right? Like you might be that person. Fear of rejection or judgment. We hate that. Fear of losing your temper, being out of control, fear of being cruel. We don't want to hurt, I don't want to hurt people, right? Fear that there will be no positive outcome or that it will not be worth it. Next. So, how could conflict possibly be a gift with all those horrible things? Next. Well, some of the benefits can be that it can help you, conflict can help you self-advocate, right? You have needs. You might deny them, you might push them down, you might actually not even have a space where people give a crap about them, but they're still there. And so self-advocacy is really important. And being comfortable with conflict means that you're going to be able to better self-advocate. It's important for resisting oppression or injustice. You can't do that without conflict. We cannot have justice without conflict. Building trust. How can you have a real relationship with someone? How can you trust someone unless you know that they're able to hold you when you are in conflict? That they are able to hold you when you are angry, that they are able to hold you when you say, hey, you hurt me. And they need to know that you're going to be able to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me fix it as best I can, right? There is no trust without conflict. Feeling heard. It's important to feel heard. Deepening understanding. As we get into conflict with people, we start to understand ourselves better. Oh, this is what matters to me. These are my values, and this is what matters to you, and these are your values. It's going to deepen our connection, deepen our intimacy, and we need conflict for survival sometimes. Some people more than others. Some people need conflict for survival every day. So conflict is very important. Are we getting it? That people are getting on board now? Okay, great. It also creates a space for growth. So the more that we deny or avoid conflict, the more resentments can build, and we end up with more anger, contempt, isolation. But like a prescribed burn, if we tend to the small grievances and create plans and agreements around the minor tensions, then that's going to prevent problems from raging out of control. And one of my favorite examples of this is my friend Mindy, who's also on the board. When I first joined Rewild Portland, I didn't know Mindy that well, and I actually thought she hated me because I'm that person that thinks everyone hates me. But I said something that upset her, and she immediately came to me and she's like, "Hey, Sheila, can we talk? Like, you said this thing, and it upset me." And I felt, of course, but also like, "Oh my God." She told me. She just said it. She didn't go and talk to it about somebody else. She didn't give me the cold shoulder. She just told me. And then we were able to talk about it and I was able to hear her. And that built trust. That built intimacy. That built a friendship over time. And she appreciated that I was like, oh my God, tell me all about it. How did I fuck up? Sorry, I cussed. And so now we have been friends for many years, right? Okay, just so you know, I'm not lying. And so those kind of little prescribed burns are going to help us to have stronger relationships, to trust each other, and to not wait and hold on to resentment until it explodes. And I think that that is a lot of Western culture, a lot of white culture is hold it down and then it's going to come out in the wrong way. Everyone wants a village, but no one wants to be a villager. This quote has become very popular lately, and it's so true. A lot of the people that come through Rewild Portland are like, I'm looking for a village. I'm looking for my people. I'm looking for community. I want to build this thing. I'm going to make an intentional community. We're all going to go live in the woods. Good luck. If you don't know how to conflict, that's going to explode really quickly. And part of being a villager is knowing how to do conflict with each other, is being open to doing conflict with each other, is being open to being wrong, making mistakes, being open to admitting your mistakes, taking actual accountability, not scripted accountability, not sorry, but not sorry that you feel that way, right? But actual, oh, I messed up. Let me think on that, right? Otherwise, a village isn't going to last. And so if you are someone who is looking for a village, this is a skill to be tending. If you only, this is going to get hard for everybody. If you only associate with people who share every one of your values, you will either end up with shallow relationships or alone. Nobody shares every one of your values. If you keep getting to know someone and you are authentic with each other, you will find differences. You will find serious differences sometimes. And now There's something happening in our culture where we feel like if this person doesn't share this value, they're not my people. Get rid of them, throw them in a ditch. I don't want them anymore. And we just can't live like that if we're going to live like a village, if we're going to live in community, if we're going to live relationally, right? We're going to have to be around people who do not share all of our values, who are not always comfortable, who are not always safe. And we see Joy show up today knowing that she's not going to be entirely safe and still giving, right? We need to be thinking about how our differences make us stronger. Diversity strengthens communities, and that includes diversity of thought and opinion. Conflict is going to happen. If you aren't able to engage with it in your world, your world's going to get very small very fast. And I'm not suggesting everyone go into spaces that are unsafe or be around people who are not safe to you. Obviously, that's not always a good idea. But starting to think about where you can push that boundary. Are you really unsafe or are you just uncomfortable? We need each other. That's it. That's a period. Like, okay. But that guy sucks. So being a villager means being in community with people that you might fundamentally disagree with or that you might not even like. You don't have to be friends with everybody, right? But you might need to learn to coexist if we're talking about living in community that is real community that is reliant on each other. Because we have neighbors, right? I don't know how many of you know your neighbors, but if there is a natural disaster, or if there is an ice raid, or if something is happening in your neighborhood, all of a sudden those people hopefully are going to be on your team. That's your community now. Are you going to be able to engage with them even if they voted for the other guy? Dun dun dun. Because there might be a fire and they might be the only one with a hose, right? So there's going to be your friends, the people that you spend your time with, that you feel safe with, that you have that kind of community with. But in a broader community, how are we able to engage with our neighbors who we disagree with, even on deep levels, even on getting into unsafe territory levels? How much can we engage in the conflict? I had a couple of my neighbors not long ago get into a fist fight. I think there was maybe drugs involved. And I went out into the street and started talking to them, and now we're friends. So sometimes not being afraid of conflict can really transform a situation. And we need to learn to meet people where they're at now. Not everyone has had the education that you have had. Not everyone has had the experiences that you have had. I grew up in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of different types of people in Los Angeles. And still I have so many blind spots. Sometimes I'll meet someone though who's like, they'll have questions or not understand something, and I'll be so confused. How could you not know? But they didn't have the same experiences that I had. They didn't have the same teachers that I had. I've been so blessed to have so many incredible teachers. And if I didn't have the privilege of being able to afford those teachers, of being able to read those books, of being able to be in those spaces, then I wouldn't have that knowledge and understanding, right? If I was raised in a different bubble with a different indoctrination, I don't know what my situation would be, right? And so having a little bit of grace for what people don't know. It doesn't mean that it's always your job to educate people, right? It doesn't mean that it's always your job to hold space for people who are being hateful, especially towards you. But it's something to think about. When can you do that? Are you convinced? How we doing? Okay, great. One, good. Um, no, back. Yeah. But I'm bad at conflict. Raise your hand if that was a thought that you had. Oh, a lot of you. Awesome. Great. Don't worry, you're not going to be bad anymore. I'll fix it right now. So don't worry, navigating conflict is a skill that can be learned. If you tend toward explosive, you can learn to be more level-headed. And if you tend toward being avoidant, you can learn to be more brave and direct. And if you tend toward defensive, That's most of us, let's be real. Then you can learn to embrace humility. You can build skills that will help you feel safe. If you feel safe, you'll be able to show up as your best or at least better self. So, one part of engaging in conflict is regulation. We're going to talk about that more, but just feeling like you have some skills and some tools under your belt, under your belt, you got some tools, then that's going to help you to regulate better in those moments and show up not reactively. So let's get some tools. Number one is the 4 F's. There's actually like sometimes 6 F's, there's sometimes 3 F's. I chose 4 because I just wanted a picture of a baby deer. So, so fight, flight, freeze, fawn. This is the nervous system state when we're more in our amygdala. We don't really have as much access to our reasoning or our like higher selves, right? We're more reactive. And it's an important state to have because it's going to keep us safe, but sometimes it does the opposite. And so knowing yourself, what's your default? When you go into the fight or flight state, I'm tired. If you go into the fight or flight state, then are you more of a flighter where you're going to run, you're going to try to avoid? Are you more of a fighter? You want to jump at the chance to talk about, there's injustice, get them. Or are you more of like a freeze person where you just freeze up? Or a fawn. So the fawning it's actually a complicated freeze response as I understand it, but it's this, I think a lot of us do this because when you're a kid, if you have parents that do discipline, then if you try to fight them, you're going to lose. And if you try to flee, they will catch you. And if you freeze, they won't like that. So your only option is fawn, where you start going, yes, mommy, the greatest mother in the world. I will do whatever you want. Okay, yes, of course, right? And so then that becomes kind of our norm. Raise your hand if you're a fawner. Yeah, a lot of us. Yeah. I'm a recovering fawner. And so, but knowing these things, then you can sort of check yourself. So if you're typically the person who flees and you see conflict and you go, ruh, and you go, wait a minute, Sheila said I should think about this. Maybe I can stay for just a little longer. If you're a fighter, maybe you go, okay, maybe I can, let's see if I can just keep it cool for a few more seconds. If you're a fawner, you go, why am I being so nice to this jerk? Maybe I can stop, right? Maybe I don't need to do that. And just also thinking about those things for the other person, reflecting that they might be doing one of those things to you. And if they are, then think about what state they're in. You might not have won the argument. You might just be louder and they gave up. I had to learn that one because I'm loud. Understand neurodiversity is important as well. I can't shut up about neurodiversity, but look, people typically talk about neurodiversity in terms of like the needs and rights of neurodivergent people, the people whose brains and nervous systems are diverging from societal norms, but actually we're all part of neurodiversity. There is a big spectrum of brains and nervous systems, and we all are experiencing the world in such incredibly different ways. We have such different internal experiences based on our biology, based on our experiences. And so what we think someone's intentions are might not be their intentions. You might think, if I said that, I would mean this. That does not mean that they meant that. And the only way that we're going to really embrace neurodiversity is to get deeply, radically curious about each other. What could this person be feeling right now? What would I be feeling is step one, but they might not be feeling what I would be feeling, right? Treat others as you would like to be treated? No. Treat others as they would like to be treated. And it can be very, very different in conflict, especially. So, for example, I have a friend who's the way that she sees if a person is a good friend, is loyal, is if they'll jump in and stand up for her. Somebody says some crap and she wants me to go, hey, don't talk to her like that or whatever, right? If someone did that for me, if someone said something mean to me and someone else jumped in like that, I would be so embarrassed. I'd be like, do you think I don't know how to talk to people? Why are you yelling? So what one person sees as respect, another person might see as disrespect. What one person sees as loyalty, another person might see as disloyalty or infantilization, right? And we have to be open to that. When we're in conflict with someone, we have to be open to they might be looking at this very differently than me. They might need something very different than I need. They might have a perspective that I do not understand. They might be from a different walk of life, a different culture, especially in the United States. How many cultures, microcultures, subcultures are around, right? So many. I used to work in Los Angeles in home with kids. And so in the morning, I would be in a Nigerian home. In the afternoon, I was in a Filipino home. At night, I was in a French home. The expectations, the way that people speak to each other, what is respect, what is disrespect, completely different, one house to another on the same block, right? So we have to be open to the idea that what our respect is might not be someone else's respect. And there's also that with neurodivergence as well, that maybe certain types of brains really need directness, and that's respect, and other types of brains might need something a little bit softer, and that's respect. One thing that we can do is to create a container. Like this cat is in a container. The time and place that you engage in conflict has serious consequences for the outcome. So sometimes you have to engage right in the heat of the moment, like somebody's trying to punch you. You probably can't be like, 1 moment, let me process. You have to just do it. But if you can, try to get into the time and space where it feels correct, it feels comfortable, both people feel as safe as possible. And some people really benefit from having processing time before having this conversation. Other people need less time, they might get anxious. Usually those two people like to get into relationships together. Um, raise your hand if you're the I need processing time person. Okay, raise your hand if you're the I want to talk about this right now or I'll die person. Yeah, it's like half and half. So I'm sure you're all married to each other. I don't know. I do couples counseling stuff and like, oh my God, it's always one of each. So, but you can before a tip is so before you're going to have a hard conversation, tell the person that might be anxious, hey, buddy, I want to talk about this. Not just I want to talk, F that, but like I would love to talk about the state of the household. Can we have a conversation about chores tonight after dinner? Right? The person goes, "Oh, okay. They have time to think about that. What is the state of the household? What are the chores? What am I doing? Right? And then the other person who might not want to process, they want to talk about right now, they can call their mom, right, and vent, or call somebody else and vent about it and externally process, not at the person who's trying to take space. Pro tip. One thing that I love to talk about is the 3 R's. Uh, and so I just remembered that time is a thing. I have no idea what's happening. So Dr. Bruce Perry always talks about regulate, relate, reason. So one way to regulate is to do that taking space thing. But you want to make sure before you start talking about a conflict, if you can, to figure out that if both parties are as regulated as possible. Then we want to relate. We want to actually take time to listen. I know it's a foreign concept. I want you to actually hear what that person is saying and validate it. Sometimes that just looks like restating what they just said, right? They're like, you hurt me. And you're like, oh my God, I hurt you. Revolutionary. Reason, once you're both regulated and each person has felt heard, you've modeled what it looks like to hear that person. Now they're going to be more willing to hear you, and you can make your case, whatever that may be. So for example, let's sit down and talk about this. I'll make some tea and snacks and meet you in the living room. So you might say, okay, I understand. That makes sense. I'm going to think about ways to show more appreciation in a way that works for you. And then, hey, I really do appreciate for the things that you do, and I need more support around the house. I'm exhausted by the amount of chores I'm doing. So you heard them, and now they're going to hear you. What if they're completely unreasonable? So what if they're like, it makes sense you're feeling like that's a cute puppy. It has fur and paws like a puppy. However, despite the fur and paws, that is in fact a bear. I can tell from its large size and claws. It's very cute, but I think that it will not end well if you try to pet it, right? Sometimes you can find something that makes sense in someone's opinion that makes no sense. A question to ask when you're trying to think about trying to get a question to the other person of where are you going and how would you like to get there? We're sitting down to solve a conflict. Where are we trying to go? How are we going to get there? Some good questions. I'm not going to read them all because of time, but here are some good questions to try to get to what does this person actually need? What are they trying to get here? Are they trying to alleviate a fear? Are they trying to feel heard? Are they trying to get your love and affection? What is actually at the root of the concern that they're bringing up? These are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. These are the things to avoid: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. It is a disastrous mistake to fight to win instead of fighting to understand. Just that. Boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries real quick. So, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and myself simultaneously. People think about boundaries as a hard and fast barrier, but that's not actually what boundaries are best used for. I don't know. That's not what they are, as far as I understand. So, a boundary is an agreement with yourself about what you will and will not tolerate and what actions you're going to take to keep yourself physically and emotionally safe. One thing I always tell people is you don't have to say your boundary out loud. If you live in a family that doesn't hear boundaries, they don't have that channel, you don't have to tell them your boundary. Just do it, right? It's not about controlling the other person. It's not about changing the other person's behavior even. Ideally, it does. That would be cool, but that's not reality, right? So a boundary is more like, if you do X, I will do Y. For example, if you criticize my food choices, I will not share meals with you. You don't have to tell your mom if you do not, right? Like it's not gonna go well, maybe. But you can just go, oh, sorry, mom, like I can't make it to dinner. Let's play board games after, right? Um, if you curse at me, I will hang up the phone and end the conversation. You don't have to tell them that, just hang up, right? They could figure that out. Next slide. Boundaries can actually bring us closer together. So boundaries are often thought to push people away or maintain distance, but if used correctly, boundaries can help us feel closer. When you feel confident in your ability to set and enforce a boundary, then you can feel safer. You're like, I know that I can go into this space because at this point I leave. I know I can go into this space because at this point I'm going to start screaming, whatever, do X. The other person will also feel safer because they know what to expect. They know what lines are drawn. Boundaries can be a way to stay in relationship with someone who doesn't share your values or is lacking in relational skills. You can have boundaries with that neighbor that voted for the other guy, where you're like, I only say, good morning, nice lawn, and then I leave, right? But I'm keeping some kind of connection just to feel like we are humans together, to keep my humanity and to keep their humanity in our space. And then there's a few little language tweaks that can be helpful, which I'm gonna, I guess, run through quickly. Slide. So I statements, I know it's like popular and cliche, but truly can be helpful. Naming the state instead of telling the story. So instead of like, you're trying to hurt me, being like, I am feeling really hurt by you, right? You don't know that person's intention. You can guess. The truth is, the intention doesn't matter. There's like an epidemic of people trying to like diagnose their boyfriends and girlfriends with narcissism. Are they a narcissist? Are they not a narcissist? It doesn't matter. If they're hurting you, leave. You're not their doctor. You don't need to diagnose them. Just get out, right? Even if they have a reason, they have trauma. Yeah, that sucks. They should get a therapist and you should leave if someone's hurting you, right? Like doing harm, not just like everybody. If you're in relationship with someone, they're gonna hurt you, right? But if there's an abusive situation going on, Leave. Anyway. So also words like why and what is like surprising to people. But I think because when we're kids, if your mom comes up and goes like, why are you doing that? She's not curious, right? If your dad comes up and goes, what are you doing? He doesn't really want to know. So now when we do that to other people, hey, why did you do that? We automatically feel questioned. And so rewording can just be really powerful in those situations. What's making you feel that way? I want to know more. Tell me about your process. Reflect back. It sounds like silly or unnatural at first, but just repeating back what a person says is so, so powerful to show that you actually heard them and to make sure that you understood them correctly, right? If someone says, like, oh, you're feeling unsupported by me. Is that right? Right? Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand. You feel like I was doing this purposely to hurt you? Oh, okay. Now we can go from there. That's what you were trying to say? Okay, so you're upset, but you aren't ready to talk about it. So I'm feeling I should give you space. Is that really what you want right now? Because sometimes people act like they want space, but they don't, right? So check in, ask directly. Next slide. Stay solution focused. What is your goal here? If your goal is to hurt the other person, it's time to walk away, probably, right? But if your goal is to find a common understanding and be able to move forward with solutions, don't get stuck on the unimportant details or your ego. I will stop a conversation right in its tracks when I start to see us like getting into like the no, but you said this. No, I didn't exactly say that. It was Tuesday. No, it was Thursday. Hold on. What are we trying to do here? You can actually write down, this is what we're trying to figure out. I feel like you hurt me. I feel like you're always accusing me of hurting you, and I'm never doing that or whatever. Okay, well, let's figure that out. Stop talking about what day it was. Perfectionism, the final boss. We're getting to the end. Here we go. So, um, next slide. Great. Making mistakes is human. It's important. That's why erasers were invented. We can really be hard on ourselves and on others for making mistakes. We can be extra hard on ourselves, right? So part of rewilding ourselves is shedding the colonial white supremacist toxic stories that we've been brainwashed with. This is one of them. This idea of perfectionism. Perfection does not exist. A perfectionist is not someone who does things perfectly. A perfectionist is someone who never feels good enough, right? We're going to find, if we're going to find our way back to humanity, we have to leave behind perfectionism and policing of others and ourselves. We have to embrace radical acceptance and radical forgiveness because we are all truly doing the best we can with what we have. Are we though? Probably. We have biology, we have our experiences, we are this accumulation of all of these things. And honestly, like if you feel good doing nice things for people, how lucky, right? I think about that sometimes, like, oh my God, I'm so glad I like making people happy. I'm so glad that I hate hurting people. What if you loved it? That would be so hard. Next. People do well if they can. It's like a motto. It's the original quote is children do well if they can, but all people do well if they can. We need the right supports. You're not necessarily the right support. Just because someone's doing bad doesn't mean it's your job to help them. You might not be the right person. Anyone who is your oppressor is not your job to help them, right? But if you're on equal ground with somebody, then maybe you want to step in. People can do well if they have the right supports. Some of those supports are like physical, right? Biological. Maybe those supports aren't even available. But if someone's not doing well, it's probably because there's something wrong, right? And that you don't want to tolerate the behavior, but you can have empathy without tolerance. I really think that's important. That you can have empathy for someone and understand that they have their reasons for being the way that they are, and also not tolerate their behavior. Next. So go forth. My goal today was to inspire you and to really help you see that conflict is a gift that you can use in your relationships, in your communities, safety nets, or resistance that you are seeking. And to help build your confidence so you realize that as scary as conflict might seem, you can handle it. You have the strength and resilience to sit through discomfort and allow it to transform into something truly amazing. Do you feel that now? My favorite's like person going like, Um, perfect. I love your honesty. Thank you for being here. Nice. Are you ready to fight? Yeah. Think about any conflict going on in your life. If you think of it as a gift, as an opportunity for connection, learning, and growth, what can change with that idea? If you've just been thinking like, "Ooh, my husband's so lazy," like how could we reframe that? What other tools do you need in order to feel good about engaging in necessary conflict? And think about where you can seek out those tools. I can't give them all to you today. I gotta go. Yeah. Thank you. Please ask questions now. How was time?
That was great. You were on totally perfect. You actually still had a little bit of time left. She did a great job. Thank you, Sheila. I wanted to highlight a comment that came through on Zoom when it was the 4 Fs, fawn, freeze, fight, flight. It's really important to discuss, tend, and befriend as well as these 4 because 1, the female and indigenous scientists who have done the science are being repressed. And 2, trend and befriend are the ways that those who are less able or caring for those who are less able must use these. So I don't know if you have a response to that.
Just thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So we're going to do a little Q&A. We again have our roving microphone person. I want to remind y'all to put the Q in the Q&A. So I would love to hear a discrete question because I don't know if we need the entire story. I tend to tell stories very long. I'm very wordy. But yeah, just make sure there's a question in there somewhere that Sheila can respond to.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
What do you think about, oh God, I'm blanking out now because I'm on a microphone. What do you think about no as a complete sentence? Do you feel like it is pro-social to simply tell someone no and leave it at that? Or do you think that that's like do you think that's cool?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really the way that I think about things like that is not like, is it good? Is it bad? Even like, is it pro-social? It's just like, is it helpful? And is it going to work? Is it going to get you the outcome that you want? Sometimes yes. Sometimes no is a complete sentence, and that works great, and it's going to get you the outcome that you want. And if I tell my dog no, it probably is going to work great. He understands that really well. Humans, more complicated. So I think if you're in a relationship with somebody and they say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" and you go, "No." They're gonna go, "Why?" Like, no is a complete sentence. Like, okay, doesn't sound like you want to be in relation with me, like in relationship with me at all. So I don't think like if what you're looking for is them to really hear you, that like I just don't want to have this conversation right now. Can I just say no? Like, then maybe that's something that you agree to earlier on. Like, hey, look, if I say no, and every time I say no, you're like, but why? But why? But why? Then I get really exhausted and I feel like you're not hearing me. And I would love it if when I say the word no, you just go like, all right, that's something that you have to talk about beforehand. Otherwise, you're just shutting the person down. They're going to be lost, like left like help, like confused and like hurt probably, and just feeling distant. So if you're trying to be in relationship with somebody, no, I wouldn't do that. If you're trying to get someone away from you, maybe, but also some people don't understand that word, and then you end up just like getting into a conflict with someone when you were trying to just shut something down. So yeah, I don't think it's usually a great strategy to get what you want. Yeah, does that answer it? Cool. I'm letting them decide who to choose, so I don't know.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I think something that comes to mind, especially in Portland in particular, which is usually mostly white bodies in the room and like progressive spaces, is thinking about the weaponization of therapy speak, quote unquote, or this language of like, I won't hold space for you, or my white conditioned nervous system can't hold space for you, especially anger as one of those emotions, mostly from Black and brown bodies. If you don't show up with nicety or in a way that feels approachable or safe for my nervous system. And I know you talked about this of like at the beginning, expanding our capacity to hold complexity and discomfort being like foundational for having good conflict with each other. But I'm just curious if you have thoughts around the weaponization of all of this and how whiteness has kind of eaten like doing conflict well.
Yeah, I could do a whole talk on just that. But I mean, and especially because I work in like neurodivergent spaces, right? There's like a reality that privilege is a weakness. Like, privilege is if you have had too much privilege, you just don't have the stamina that we're going to hear about stamina later. You don't always have the capacity. And so I think it's our responsibility as white people to learn to gain that stamina, right? I think that we have to if we want to exist in community with the rest of the world. And also, it's good for us. Um, in a moment, you can't use a tool you don't have. So it's hard because the reality of the situation is if you do not have the tools to handle someone yelling and then someone's yelling, even if they should be yelling and they have every right to be yelling, there's not a lot you can do, right? And so this is work that has to be done outside of the moment. This is something that we have to be thinking about all the time. Like, what am I going to be doing to increase my capacity so that if I get into a situation where I am going to be holding space for somebody, I want to be able to hold space for all of their feelings. I want to be able to watch them scream and cry and hold that and not make it about me and not shut down and not start crying. If I want to be able to do that, and I've never done that before, those are skills that you need to build. And so, yeah, I think there's just a reality where we go into that fight or flight state and there's nothing you can do about it. There's so many people that come to me about this exact question because I do work in anti-racist spaces and with neurodivergent people. And there's people that come up and they go, I just can't not cry. Please help me, you know? It just takes time to build that capacity. But being aware and just saying that out loud and being like, I'm here for you. I'm trying to do this for you, you know, as best you can. But yeah, I think taking the time to do that work outside of the conflict space is really important.
I can hold it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is it on me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, so as a teenager, I spent a lot of time on Stormfront. Okay. So that's like the white supremacist website where they all gather and they're like, you know, and imagine my surprise, actually not surprise, that as Trump came to ascendancy, a lot of those people started to make their way off the website and into mainstream. And so when you say things like, uh, befriend your Trump neighbor, what I hear is befriend your Klan neighbor, befriend your skinhead neighbor, befriend your Nazi neighbor. That's what I hear. And so my question is, when you are saying that, does it make room for or space for the people who then don't feel safe in community with those people?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, to clarify, I don't think you should befriend your clan neighbor. There was like one of the quotes on there was like, there's a difference between befriending and coexisting. And so the thing that I would advocate for is to know how to coexist with those people, which I think you probably already do, you know? Um, but knowing how to have boundaries with that, I do think that if someone is physically unsafe for you, then no, you should not do that, you know? And like I said, like it's not, if someone is your oppressor, then it is not your job to be educating them or trying to make space for them. At all. But I do think that there is some nuance to how do we coexist with people when it comes to a situation that we might end up in where there is, yeah, like a natural, like I was talking about, like a natural disaster or something like that, where that neighbor is the one that has the hose and there's a fire, or you're going to have to share resources. Like, how can you coexist with someone who is that far gone, you know? And you don't have to. I don't think that people should ever have to do that. And I wouldn't push someone to if they said like, I don't feel comfortable with that. But sometimes it could come down to survival. And like, that's where I'm thinking about it, the way that the world is going. And a lot of my teachers, Christiana Mina Galloway, for one, is like a Nigerian speaker who I've taken classes with, and something that she's always talking about is that the United States is sort of going in a way we don't know how to be in space with people who are super problematic, and that is going to be a detriment when things get really bad, and when things become dangerous, and it becomes about survival. How do we create interactions that are safe, or at least that are possible, with people who, yeah, like don't respect our right to live even, how do we do that? And it's just something that I think is important to start thinking about with the way that the world is going, that some of us might have to be in situations like that, but it's not good. I don't, I'm not like, no, totally go be friends with your Trump neighbor. But it's something, yeah, I think we need to start thinking about in case we have to. Did that answer the question? Okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Probably said also finding the white people who are willing to do the work, and maybe you have a buffer person. Um, someone has yeah, there we go. Sorry.
Okay, from the Zoom, someone says, I witness large groups of folks that have no capacity for this work because they/we are fighting to survive every day. And so we/they are caught in these unhealthy conflict cycles, want to change and have no space to do so, no access to support to do this work. Are folks with more capacity doing work to help with this kind of phenomena?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The whole thing or just the last bit?
The whole thing.
Okay. I witness large groups of folks that have no capacity for this work because they/we are fighting to survive every day. And so we/they are caught in these unhealthy conflict cycles. We want to change and have no space to do so, no access to support to do this work. Are folks with more capacity doing work to help with this kind of phenomena?
Are they? Sometimes. Are folks with more capacity doing more? Yes, sometimes. I think one thing to think about as far as, yeah, like I was saying, a lot of the people that I work with that are saying these things, like I don't have the capacity to do this, are privileged people, are white people, are people that have not had to stretch, that have not had to build resilience and capacity. And I'll hear, white neurodivergent people be like, but I'm disabled. And I'm like, okay, but the Black and brown disabled people are having to do this every single day. So maybe you can push yourself a little bit more. And again, that does mean learning tools and getting supports. There are free supports out there for learning about your nervous system, learning how to build capacity, learning to do conflict work. And, you know, if you can't, you can't. That's just like, like I was saying, if you don't have the tool, you can't use it. But think about if you really can't, or if you're just really uncomfortable. And I think the pandemic made a lot of people's capacity smaller because we were able to sort of like isolate and not challenge ourselves in certain ways. And you have to work to rebuild that capacity. You have to get uncomfortable, and you have to keep going out of your comfort zone and building that window of tolerance. It seems heartless, especially because I do work in like disability rights, but like I think we have to push ourselves a little bit sometimes. I think that we're pushed and pushed and pushed in this way. And then we go like, I'm tired of being pushed, period. And then it's like, well, hold on. You can't just stop growing. You can't stop pushing yourself. There are fights to be fought that are worth fighting, and you're gonna have to push yourself in these other ways. Figure out what fights are worth fighting for you, figure out what is worth it for you in general. But I would just really urge people to look around, that more marginalized people are having to push, and maybe you can push a little harder sometimes. And sometimes you can't, and then, okay, that's fine. Is that it? All right. Thank you all so much.